All right, sixth graders, I am going to do a video going over this entire practice test. You do not need to watch the whole thing if you just fast forward to the problems you had incorrect or the problems you want to see me solve. Anyway, let me get started with number one. So, first one, it says this is a no calculator problem, and it says simplify. So when it says simplify, we just have to solve. Now when we look at this, you have to remember PEMDAS, and in PEMDAS, remember it's that should be a better P. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. So we need to multiply before we subtract. So I'm going to start by multiplying, and I'm going to do 2 times 2.036. Now you could do that lattice or you could do traditional. I'm going to do traditional for this. 2.036 times 2. Okay, so I solve, I get, that's 12, 7, 0, 4, and there's 3 decimal digits, 3 decimal digits. So I have 4.072, but then I need to do part 2, which is subtract minus 2.268. So now I'm going to do some borrowing. 12 minus 8 is 4, 6 minus 6 is 0, 10 minus 2 is 8, and 3 minus 2 is 1. So you should have B, 1.804. All right, for number 2, it is no calculator. And this one, I will tell you, is a challenging problem. So as I go over this one's going to take a little bit of thinking. So here's what it says. It says, Grace has 15 3/4 cups of plant food. She divides the plant food equally into 3 bags. All right, there's a lot going on there. That's too much for my brain to handle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read it, and I'm going to take each one of these things one at a time. So Gracie has 15 3/4 cups of plant food. And in the first one, it says she divides the plant food equally into 3 bags. So I'm going to draw 3 bags right here. And to divide it equally into 3 bags, I need to divide it by 3. Now remember, I'm going to divide it by 3, and you are allowed to use a calculator for this part, remember. So when I typed in 15 3/4 divided by 3, I got 5 1/4. So remember, that means in each bag is 5 1/4. Now, step 2, it says she uses all of the plant food in one of the bags to feed her potted flowers. All right, so let me think about that one here. So let me get rid of this problem here. So she is going to use all of the plant food. Let's say she uses all of that I shaded purple to feed her potted flowers. Now, that kind of takes care of the part 2, I think. Now, part 3 says she feeds each potted flower 3/4 cup of food. So that means, remember, she's using all of this. She's using 5 1/4 cups. Now, I could keep subtracting 3/4 minus 3/4 minus 3/4 minus 3/4. Okay, because think about it. She feeds each potted flower that much each time. But I'm not going to do that. Now it says, how many potted flowers does Grace feed? So every time I subtract 3/4, I would just count that as a potted flower. But there's an easier way. And the easier way, rather than subtracting 3/4 repeatedly, is to divide by 3/4. So that means I'm going to do 5 1/4 divided by 3/4. So I'm typing that now. Divided by 3/4. And I get 7, which is the answer. So how many potted flowers does she feed? 7. All right, so that's the answer to number 2. Moving on, let's go to 3. Ivan packed 56 apples and 72 pears into boxes. So as I read it, I write, so 56 apples and 72 pears. By the way, as I'm solving this is the first time I've solved these, so I don't know the answer. He packed both apples and pears into each box. All right. Okay. He put the same number of apples into every box. All right. And the same number of pears into every box. He sold each box for $19.95. What is the greatest amount of money Ivan could earn selling all boxes of fruit. Okay, so here's what I know. Because he's packing, let me get my highlighter ready. He put the same number of apples into every box and the same number of pears into every box. That is a greatest common factor in disguise. So I need to find the GCF of 56 and 72. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a factor tree of 56 and then of 72. And 56 is 7 times 8. 8 is 2 times 4. And 2 times 2 times 2. Bring down the 7. So I have 7 times 2 times 2 times 2. And one of those 2's is very sloppy, so I'm going to fix that. 7 times 2 times 2 times 2. Now 72, I'm going to do 9 times 8. 9 is 3 times 3. 8 is 4 times 2. Bring down 3. Bring down 3. 4 is 2 times 2. And bring down the 2. And then I'm going to go and circle my twins. So 7 doesn't have a twin. I have 3 2's here. 3 2's here. All right. So I figured out that my GCF is 8. That's the greatest number of boxes I can get. Now remember, it says he sold each box for $19.95. So that means I have to do $19.95 times 8. And if I do $19.95 times 8, oops, my calculator mistyped, 19.95 times 8, I get $159.6, which is C, $159.60. All right, let's go to 4. 4 says, which statement, oh, let me erase this here. Which statement about the opposite of a number is correct? All right, so it says the opposite of 5 is 1/5. That is not correct, because I know the opposite of 5 is -5. The opposite of 0 is 0. I think that's it, but let me check the other ones. The opposite of -5 is 0. No. And D, the opposite of -5 is 1. No. So B is correct. The opposite of 0 is 0. Okay, 5. Which number line shows a point graphed at every location that represents a number with an absolute value of 4.5? All right, now remember, absolute value is how far away a number is from 0. So, if I look at A, that is on 4.5, but that's not every location. It has to be at both the positive and the negative for 4.5. So the only one that has that is C, because look at this dot. It's at -4.5. Look at this dot. It's at +4.5. So the answer is C. All right, next page. 6. Elliot plants lettuce and onions in his garden. He always plants the same ratio of lettuce plants to onion plants as shown in the table below. The question says, based on the information in the table, how many onion plants would Elliot plant for 1 lettuce plant? Now I notice up here they have a question mark, so that must be where my answer goes. So I'm just looking at the rule here. I notice 8 times 3 is 24, 6 times 3 is 18, 4 times 3 is 12, 1 times 3 is 3, which means the answer is A. Okay, number 7, which expression has the least value? So guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to type every expression in my calculator and see which one has the least value. So the first one, 4 to the power of 1 plus 12. Now remember to use the exponent button, like for 4 to the power of 1, it's 4 to the power of 1. So I typed that plus 12. So that's just what I typed in, and I got 16. Now, for the next one, 4 to the power of 3 is, if I type that one in, it is 64. Okay, the next one, 25 minus 4 squared. If I type that one, I get 9. And then the next one, it says 4 to the power of 4 minus 160. So 4 to the power of 4, I'm just typing that in now, minus 160 is 96. So which one has the least value? As you can see, it's got to be C, which is 9. All right, number 8. So it says, let me get my pointer ready. An algebraic expression is described below. 6 more than the product of 4 times the difference of x and 3. Ooh, that hurts my head. What is the value of the expression when x equals 8? Oh, man. All right, so let me first figure out what the heck this expression is. So 6 more than. So there's going to be 6 plus in there somewhere. The product of 4 times the difference. Ooh, the product. So 6 more than. The product of 4 times the difference between x and 3. So let me go back. I'm going to use a dot for times. 4 times the difference between x and 3. Oh my gosh, I'm not even sure if that's right. So let me think about it. 6 more than, okay? The product of 4 times, so I put that in parentheses. The product is times of 4 times the difference between x and 3. Oh, geez. All right, this is a hard one. Okay, so I'm thinking that the difference of x and 3 has to be in parentheses here. I'm thinking. So it's 6 more than the product of 4 times the difference between x and 3. All right, so I'm going to try putting x equals 8 in there and see what happens here. I am not 100% sure I'm right here, guys. So 6 plus 4 times 8 minus 3. All right. Now, you could just type that in your calculator, by the way. So if I did, now I'm going to solve it using PEMDAS. So 8 minus 3 is 5 times 4 plus 6. 4 times 5 is 20. 20 plus 6 is 26. Please be a 26. All right, I got it. That was not an easy expression, so don't feel bad if you got that one wrong. That was kind of ridiculous. All right, continuing. Number 9. Marty read X books. Jackie read 28 books, which is 6 books more than the number of books Marty read. The equation below can be used to find the number of books Marty read. All right, so the number of books Marty read can be found by solving that equation. Okay, now Ron read 3 times as many books as Marty. How many books did Ron read? All right, so if this equation is the number of books Marty read, so I just have to solve to figure out what x is. Then I just got to do Ron read 3 times that many. So let me solve that equation first. So I have x plus 6 equals 28 minus 6 minus 6. Cancel. 28 minus 6 is 22. So x is 22. Now remember, that is what Marty read. Now Ron read 3 times as many books as Marty. So if Marty read 22 books, Ron read 3 times as many. Remember, you can use a calculator here. That will get you 66, which is C. Whew, my head's hurting. Okay, let's go on to number 10. A gray whale swims 161 kilometers in 24 hours. The equation below can be used to find the rate, R, so R is the rate, in kilometers per hour at which the gray whale swims. So this R is going to be how fast the gray whale swims. Rounded to the nearest tenth, what is the rate at which the gray whale swims? All right, so by the way, they shouldn't have used an X. They should have it 24 R equals 161. Okay, so let me solve this equation. Divide by 24, divide by 24. So if I do 161 divided by 24, I get a crappy decimal. So I got like 6.7083 repeating. Now, it did say rounded to the nearest tenth. So that means we're going to round it here, which should be 6.7, because that 0 keeps it a 7, which is C. All right, that one wasn't too bad. Next one, let's go on to number 11. The table below shows the relationship between the number of tables and the number of chairs in each of 3 meeting rooms in an office building. All right, tables, chairs. 3 tables, 24 chairs, 5, 40. Okay. Which equation describes the relationship between the number of tables and the number of chairs in each meeting room? All right, so let's remember here. No, you know how we always say start with y equals. Remember, this would be x, this would be y, but we're not using x and y, we're using t and c. So if you normally start with y equals, we're going to start with c equals. And I noticed I'm multiplying each number by 8. So I'm multiplying t by 8. So c equals 8 times t, which is b. All right, next page. Number 12, a store is having a sale. All items are discounted 20% off the original price. Which table shows the relationship between the original price and the discount? All right, so let's think about this for a second. 20% off the original price. So what I need to do is figure out 20% of these different numbers. So let me start with this one. So if I were to type in, to figure out what 20% of 995 is, remember, I type in 20% of means times 995. So let's see what that equals. Let me type in 20%. Don't forget your percent sign. Times 9.95 equals $1.99. That is not $1.99, so it cannot be A. Okay, now let me look here over at B. Now remember, I figured out 20% of 9.95 is $1.99. So it could be this one, but let me check the next numbers. So let me do 20% of 1995. So 20% times 1995 equals $3.99. So far, so good. So let me try the next one here. I'm going to do 20% of 29.95. So 20% times 29.95 equals $5.99. All right, one more to check. 20% of 39.95. So 20% times 39.95 equals $7.99. Ding, 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 ding. It is B. All right. So let's continue to move on. Let's go to number 13. Which, well, I can't read it there. A figure is shown below. What is the area of the figure? Okay, we've done a lot of these. I hope you got this one. So let me split it up here. I'm going to split it right here. And I see 5 times 5 is 25. Okay, now let me switch to a different color for this one. So I'm going to find the area of this rectangle. So 15 times 12, I don't know in my head. So I'm going to type that in, equals 180. Don't forget to add 180 with 25, and I get 205. A is the correct answer. All right, next page. 14. A rectangular prism is pictured below. What is the volume? Remember, volume equals length times width times height of a rectangular prism. So I just have to do 16.5 times 4 times 9.25. All right, let me type that in. So 16.5 times 4 times 9.25. I just did the decimals instead of the fractions. And I got 610.5 or 610.5, which is D. All right, next. It says a three-dimensional figure is pictured. Which net could form a three-dimensional figure when folded along the line segments? All right, so that looks like a square pyramid to me. Remember, a square pyramid has a squarish base, or that's more like a rectangle, I guess, with a triangle on each side. And that definitely is D. Next page. Number 16. A band has an album with 9 songs on it. The length of the songs in seconds are listed below. What is the median song length in seconds of the 9 songs? All right, so remember, to find the median, put them in least to greatest order. By the way, if you don't and you pick 265, you see that answer right there? Wrong. They just tricked you. So remember, I'm going to put them in least to greatest order first. Okay, so let's start. I'll pause it while I do that. Okay, so I just wrote the numbers in least to greatest order. Now I'm going to cross off little big until I get to the middle. So little, big, little, big, little, big, little, big, middle. Middle is the median, so the median is 201, which is A. All right, now we're on to the multiple or the open-ended question. So remember, your answer doesn't have to be exactly the same as mine, so I'm just going to solve this in a way that would give a high-scoring answer. So question 17 says, Carlos surveyed 40 men about their shoe sizes. I have a feeling that 40 men might be important. Carlos made the box and whisker plot below to display his results. And question A says, what was the median shoe size for the 40 men Carlos surveyed? Explain how you found your answer. All right, so remember, with a box plot, the median is that line. And I notice it is between the 10 and the 11. So it says, what's the median shoe size? So I'm going to write this. Remember, when you write these, you want it to be as neat as you can for the people checking. So the median is, it's a shoe size, so I'll say size 10.5. And yes, you could have 10.5 as a fraction. Now, it says, explain how you found your answer. All right, so when I explain this, I want them to understand that I know the median is that middle line. Now, to show off how much I know, I'm going to kind of explain a little bit about what the 5 parts mean. So, here's what I'm going to say. I'm not going to go too much in. I'm just going to go a couple sentences. I'm going to say, I know the median. Let me pause it for a little bit. Okay, so I have my first sentence. Said, I know the median is the line in the middle of the box between 10 and 11. So that's how I know it's the median, but I'm going to also say, I'm also going to mention what these other things are. So I'm going to say, the minimum was 6. The maximum is 13. Q1 is 9. And Q3 is 11.5. I'm just going to say the median, or 10.5, is the middle shoe size. I want to leave no doubt in the test checker's mind that I know what median is, I know what a box plot is, so that's why I listed these other things. And I'm sure if you didn't list the minimum, maximum, Q1, Q3, you still would have been fine. So don't stress over that. And I said the median is the middle shoe size at 10.5. So I wanted to make sure everything was here. Now keep in mind, I found the median and I explained it. I'm done with part A. Part B. It said, and I highlighted it, it said Carlos surveyed 40 men about their shoe sizes. Please refer to the previous page for task explanation. Now, Martin thinks more men have shoe sizes between 6 and 9 than between 11.5 and 13, because the whisker from 6 to 9 is longer than the whisker from 10.5 to 13. Explain why Martin is not correct. As part of your explanation, find the number of men with shoe sizes in each interval and describe how you found those numbers. Woo, there's a lot going on here. So I'm going to see if I can get the box plot from the previous page here so I don't have to keep flipping back and forth. All right, so I pasted that down below so we can look at it here. All right, so in these problems, guys, you really have to think about each part. These are hard. So let me read it again. It says, Martin thinks more men have shoe sizes between 6 and 9. All right, so let me look at that for a second. I'm going to highlight it. So from 6 to 9, then between 11.5 and 13. Okay, so here's 11.5 to 13. Because the whisker from 6 to 9 is longer than the whisker from 11.5 to 13. Okay, I see what they're getting at. Martin thinks there's more shoe sizes here than here because the whisker is longer. Yeah, that's not right, Martin. You don't know what you're talking about. Now, it says explain why Martin is not correct. So I'm going to start with telling us why Martin doesn't know what he's talking about. Then it says, as part of your explanation, find the number of men with shoe sizes in each interval and describe how you found those numbers. Okay, so let's talk about why Martin is not correct. Here's what you got to understand. In a box plot, there are 25% of all the shoe sizes are in each section. So that's 25, that's 25, that's 25, that's 25. It doesn't matter if a whisker is longer or shorter. There's still the same amount in them. The only reason this whisker is longer is because the numbers are more spread apart. In this one, they're closer together. So I'm going to start by explaining that. Okay, so let me start here. I'll write a sentence, I'll pause it, and then we'll talk about it. Okay, so here's how I started. I said Martin is incorrect because both whiskers have 25% of the shoe sizes. Remember, each section is 25%. Now, what I do want to explain next is I know this whisker is longer from 6 to 9 because the shoe sizes are just more spread apart. So let me pause it. Okay, so let's check out my next sentence. So I said the whisker from 6 to 9 is longer because the shoe sizes are more spread out. So these two sentences should explain why Martin is not correct. So he's incorrect because both whiskers have 25% of the shoe sizes. The whisker from 6 to 9 is longer because the shoe sizes are more spread out. But there's one more thing it asked me to do. You always want to keep checking to make sure you got everything. It says, as part of your explanation, find the number of men with shoe sizes in each interval and describe how you found those numbers. So what I'm going to do is, if you remember on the previous page, that means this whole box plot is 40 men. And if each section has the same amount, that means this is 10, this is 10, this is 10, this is 10. How did I get that? Well, I took the 40. I'll erase this for my answer. The 40 men who were surveyed, and I divided it by the 4 sections of the box plot, which gives me 10 shoe sizes in each section. So my goal is to explain that clearly. So what I'm going to do is erase that here. All right, so let me think through this. I might not pause it here while I think through it here. I'll switch to blue for this part. All right, so find the number of men whose shoe sizes. All right, so now let me say that. I'm going to say each interval has 10 shoe sizes. That's my answer, but I need to describe how I found those numbers. Okay, there were 40 men surveyed. Oop, that's not were. Guess I need to learn how to spell. There were 40 men surveyed. So I divided 40 by the 4 sections, by the 4 intervals. And got 10. All right. That, ladies and gentlemen, is all I need to have. So I just deleted that stuff on the bottom because that wasn't part of my answer. So notice, remember guys, when you do these, you want to check to make sure you did each part. So I explained why Martin is not correct, because both whiskers have 25%. I found out that each interval has 10 shoe sizes, and I described how I found those numbers, because I divided by 40. If you hit every part and it's accurate, you're going to nail the open-ended questions. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's done enough with this test. It took a while, but I had to do it from scratch, just like you're going to have to do it from scratch. I hope it helped.